Hi, I'm Miss Marcia,
I'm Emma.
and we're back for the month of February with another interesting artist. You know, that's my favorite word, interesting. The artist this time is Jacob Lawrence. You might have heard his name over the past few months because, interestingly enough, again my favorite word, a picture that had been missing from part of a series of artworks that he had made was recently found in an apartment in New York, but I'll tell you more about that later. Jacob Lawrence is an American artist. He was born in Atlantic City, New Jersey, not very far from us. And through different things that happened to his family, he ended up in Harlem. Again, not too far from us either, right across the George Washington Bridge. And he and his family were very, very happy in Harlem, and that's where his art really flourished. He was a part of the Harlem Art Workshop, met some other artists, and really honed his craft. Eventually he was noticed and was exhibited in several museums in the New York area, and his career really took off. What made Jacob Lawrence a little bit different than some other artists was he liked to paint something called a series of paintings. And what that means is his paintings told a story. He did several panels. Some of them were only as big as a sheet of computer paper, and each panel told a little bit more about the story. So for example, if you wanted to paint a series, you could start out by having your first painting of you in your house, then maybe you having breakfast, then maybe going to school, then maybe coming home, or maybe going outside to play with your friends, having dinner, doing whatever you like to do after dinner. And that would be a series of events that you could paint, and you would have made a series painting. So this was really Jacob Lawrence's forte. He really enjoyed these series paintings. He liked to tell stories. He told them about every area he was in. When he was in the Navy, he did paintings about the people in the Navy. When he was in a hospital, he made a series of paintings about people in the hospital. And his most famous series was called Migration. That has 60 panels, if you can imagine, 60 panels telling the story of African American people and the different journeys that they had to go through from where they came from to where they are now. So that's what he's remembered for. You know, he's not alive with us anymore. He was born over 100 years ago. And if you look at some of his paintings, they don't even look like they were done 100 years ago. They look very current. Behind me is a cityscape, and it's about his favorite city. He loved Harlem. He loved living there. He loved painting it. And Harlem is really a part of New York City that's made of a lot of very tall buildings, some taller than others, some shorter. It's very congested, so a lot of the buildings have very small windows. A lot of people live in each building, and that was something that he really depicted in his paintings. And to make it look like a city scene, he'd add a taxi cab or a city bus so that you would know it's just not out in the country, it's part of the city. Anyhow, before we make our sample or our artwork, I'd like to just tell you about the series that I sort of briefly mentioned at the beginning. At the Metropolitan Museum of Art, there was an exhibition of a Jacob Lawrence work called Series, and one of the visitors to the museum saw that there were some panels marked as missing. This visitor remembered that in one of his neighbor's apartments there were some Jacob Lawrence paintings, and they put two and two together. That was the missing piece for this series, and the missing piece was reunited with the rest of the panels, and the museum was happy. All the patrons that went to the museum were happy, and it was a good ending to a story, because lots of times when art is lost, you never find it. Anyhow, so today we're going to make our cityscape, and that's where Emma comes in. She's an expert at this, and she's going to tell you exactly how to create a cityscape in the Jacob Lawrence style.
So first what you're going to do is you need to make your background. Now depending on the time of day you want your city to take place, you can change the sky color. So ours is a darker blue, so this will probably be like a night scene, but you could do a light blue if you want it morning or middle of the day. And then you're gonna have a little strip of black at the bottom here, because that's where the road's gonna be. So once you have your background all set, you're gonna put some buildings, because the city needs its buildings. So we use pieces of cardboard, so if you have any Amazon boxes laying around, or tissue boxes, anything like that, you can reuse them, cut them up, and use them to make buildings. And you're gonna need them not just one shape, because again, cities, they're not all made of identical buildings. So we have, this one looks like this, but then we have another one that's like leaner and taller. So you can mix it up like that, so you have some variety in your cityscape. So then once you have your buildings need windows. So there's 3 ways you can make your windows. We'll show you all 3. So the first one you can do, if you have paint at your house, what you can do is you can take some white paint, or really I guess it depends what color your cardboard is, but you can take some white, you're going to take your paintbrush and just make little marks on your cardboard. So just little squares to look like windows. Now we did another example, so here's 3 windows, and then you could do that all the way down the building. If you don't have paint, something that you might have laying around the house is graphing paper. You can buy it in a notebook, or you might just have individual sheets of it, but the graph paper is made up of little squares. So what you can do is you can cut it up, the little squares, into other squares, and just take a glue stick or Elmer's glue and glue that to your buildings and put them maybe 2 by 2 or 3 by 2, it depends on your building, and you can do that all the way down. But if you don't have graph paper, you can just take a Sharpie or any other marker and just draw on your windows. So you can draw little squares all the way down your building. Now I'm not going to do the whole building, but just to give you an idea, this is what it could look like. So once you have your buildings, you're going to need to attach them. So again, we're just going to be using a glue stick, but you can use Elmer's glue, a glue stick, tape if you don't have either types of glue, and you're just going to glue it right on. So I'll do that. And again, we're not going to do the whole thing, but we'll just give you an idea of what it could look like. So I have my one building. These ones don't have windows, but yours will. So I'll glue another one on. Maybe this one, I'll do a taller one, so that way it looks a little different. So here we have them like that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to fill up the entire horizon, which is the flat line where the sky meets the land. You're going to fill that entire thing up with buildings. So then, once you have your buildings all set, you're going to need some cars or taxis to make it look like a city. So we pre-made our taxis and our bus. This is actually, they're made out of paint samples, like the ones you can get at Home Depot. This is a yellow paint, this is a green paint. But if you don't have paint samples laying around, you could just use construction paper or color on printer paper. Really, you can use anything to make them. So that's what we just cut ours into. We drew out a car shape first and cut it, and then we just wrote taxi, gave it some wheels, and then the little sign at the top. And what you can do, you can just glue it on flat, or you could put something behind it. I'm not exactly sure what this type of paper is, but it has little raised edges. If you put the raised area behind it, it'll give it some depth, so it's like 3D. So I'll just glue this on. Might be a little hard to see, but the taxi is actually, show it this way, it's popping out of the paper a little bit, so it's like 3-dimensional. So you can do that, and you'll glue your bus on. And you can make any types of cars you want. You can fill it in. It could be a very crowded street, it could be a very empty street. So just to give you a rough idea, this is what it could start to look like.
Okay, so as you can see, Emma is excellent. She is wonderful. And as you can also see, we use a lot of resources, because I know that sometimes you do run out of construction paper or paint or whatever. So we tend to use a lot of resources. It's also good for the environment to reuse some of the things that you might have around at home. So that's what we do. But I'm going to leave packets with a little bio about Jacob Lawrence, something about Black History Month, which is February, and some supplies inside, some buildings, some white paper, different color paper. These will be at the library in the children's area, and if you're interested in picking them up, you can make arrangements to do so. And that's Jacob Lawrence. Again, he was quite an artist, and when you think about how many years ago he painted, his paintings look like they could have been done yesterday. They're not old-fashioned at all. He used a lot of basic shapes, basic colors. The figures in his paintings usually weren't too fussy. They were almost like stick figures. So he was a good artist. So we hope you enjoyed this. Now Emma's going back to college, so the next month it'll just be me. But you know how much I like having Emma here help me, and you can see that she is very good at what she does. So thank you very much, and goodbye, and be safe.